Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax, let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So welcome to today's episode of the Business Women Australia podcast show. I'm Lyn Hawkins, National Director of Business Women Australia, and I'm streaming live across Facebook, Meta, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live, and you can find us on Spotify and iTunes and catch up. And I am on the beautiful lands and the waterways of the Noongar Nation, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners who cared for this country around the nation, who lived and danced, who shared knowledge and told stories of learning and creation for thousands of years before my people arrived. And I'd like to pay my respect to First Nations elders past, present, and those emerging. I'm delighted to have back on the show today the fabulous Tracy Cooper, change specialist. She's just landed back from an incredible holiday that I've massive FOMO about, and as much as I'd love to chat about that holiday today, we're going to get into an important topic, getting clear on the case for change and where to start. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thank you, Lyn Hawkins. Hello, and it's lovely to be here. Lovely to be back with you, having a chat.
It's always great to have you. So for those of you who are tuning in, whether you lead a for-purpose organisation or a social enterprise or a private business, or you're managing a growing team, we are going to pick Tracy's brains today. She's a very experienced change specialist, and we're going to learn how to tell what type of change is needed, and whether or not, and how to navigate that decision around whether or not it's a major change or a tweak, and how to create a solid foundation to ensure that if you do embark on a change journey, that it is successful. There's a lot of detail about Tracy's background in the show notes, but we are in good hands today. She's got extraordinary experience in leadership, change management, and facilitation, and she draws on both theory and a proven practical approach. She's got a unique way of assisting leaders and their teams in being able to thrive and embrace change and make a difference in their world. So, Tracy, to kick us off, as a specialist in change management, what are you seeing right now in organisations, and why is this topic of getting clear on the case for change so important and so timely?
Well, Lyn, I'm seeing lots of change. That's what I'm seeing to start with. But what I'm also seeing is leaders who are realising, probably more so than they were 10, 15 years ago. I've been working in change for about 20 years, but they're realising that there is change coming, or they need to change. And what they really are focusing on is that they do need a process. So I applaud leaders who are seeing this, and they know that they need to tackle these changes in a methodic and a planned way, instead of just diving into action. So that's one of the things I'm seeing. The other thing I'm seeing is that change is constant. You know, I often say that, and it sounds a bit cliche, but it's coming at different levels. You just said it in the introduction. Major, maybe things that need a tweak, something that just needs improving. If you look at, I talk about every change as a project, every project is a change. So in organisations, if you think about it, it's constant. And I think the case for change is so important, because what I see the mistake leaders make is they jump into action too quick, and they make decisions on the run and rushed. They're thinking and not even done much planning, and they get into action. And I think the case for change can slow it down and get their thinking clear as a leader, but it can also help. It will definitely help their middle leaders and then the rest of the organisation to understand why we're doing this. So it's that the case for change is really, I guess, helps the change sale. That's what it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're chatting about this before we started the show, is about this sort of motivation for diving into change and being very action oriented. And both of us come from country backgrounds, and
Yes.
action and implementation is something that is applauded, and is recognised, I think, in society generally as being a successful person when you can make things happen. Yeah. You're a can-do person. You talk about change being business as usual, not a disruption. Can you explain what you mean by that and how you can help organisations embrace this mindset of continuous adaptation, this business as usual concept of change?
Well, I think as we were speaking earlier, Lyn, the world is changing around us constantly. So we can't keep doing what we've always done because it may not be relevant. So I think the most important thing to think about is to remain relevant and sustainable. We actually always have to see that change is part of everything we do. And I just use that quote, every project we do is a change, and every change we do, we can see it as a project. So there's that link between project management and change management. But change can be major or minor. And I think as a leader, it's the language and the behaviours that we use and the way we talk about change can help our people and our teams to be not so frightened of change, but to be also seeing it as this, it's something that we just don't do and we tick it off. Okay, we've done that and we're done for 2025. We don't have to do any more change. There's things that are always coming at us that we don't know are coming. And that's not just the internal world of our organisation, but the external world. So that's what I do, is I help leaders to have this thinking around their mindset and their approach and how they're going to tackle it, and to be a change organisation, to not be frightened of it, to be able to be practical and to look at this is something that we've always got to approach, and whether it's major or minor.
And so how do they tell if it's a major change that's needed or just a tweak or a process improvement? I mean, there's so many sort of levels on that spectrum of change. How can leaders sort of make those decisions around what kind of change is needed here?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Lyn, and I think that's what I would say leaders need to ask themselves before they take off into action, and to rush the decision. Do we need to change? Let's have a look. And that's why the case for change actually is very, very helpful. It helps us explore the current situation. So where are we? What is the current situation, and what are the facts around what we're seeing before we jump into implementation? And I think what problem is it that we need to solve? So it's asking ourselves these questions. What challenge is it? What evidence do we have that we might need to change something? Where's the sense of urgency? So I think that's where are we now, and getting some of that facts. And sometimes as the leader, we don't know all of that. That's where we need to consult our leadership team and down to our middle leaders in the early stages before even the decision is made to change. And I think that's how, if you work through a case for change, and there's certain questions that I help people with, I facilitate the process, but it's or people can do it themselves. But it's about answering those questions, and you'll start to see we don't need a major change here. We just need to do X, Y, Z, or we need to tweak some things, or this is going to take some major change. And it prevents, I think, organisations just following the trend. Oh, well, we better do that because the competitor is, or someone else is, or what's right for this organisation. And I think that's the key, is rushing the decision. You might come up with something, but is it really solving the challenge that you've got? So that's where, if you spend time at the front in the conception stage before you decide to change, is what's actually going on and what evidence do we need to convince us.
I can see so many leaders feel this pressure to be the ones that are having to drive change. But really, by bringing the team together and facilitating the conversation around where are we at and where do we want to be, it takes a lot of pressure off the owner or the CEO or the managing director as well, and it moves away from command control. So why is it critical to invest that time in getting clear on that case of change before jumping in or implementing solutions? What do you see are the risks and the problems with that?
Well, I think, as you just said, leaders can put a lot of pressure on themselves, particularly if they're the CEO, that they need to make this decision. I believe that's why you've got a senior leadership team. whatever you call them in your organisation, but it's about sharing that with the team, and we'll get to in a minute a little bit about alignment in that team. But it's really important that leaders don't feel like they have to make that decision. Is that they can. That's why I believe you have a team, is to consult them, get their ideas, and people have a lens or a perception of things that I may not have as the leader. So this is where the listening and conversation and being curious as a leader comes into it. Is I hadn't thought about it that way. So it's sharing the load and sharing this decision making across the team, and building on each other's ideas to collectively make that decision. And that can create alignment, definitely, if it's not just the leader saying, right, this is what we're doing, and everyone, come on, you've got to come with me. That generally doesn't work. So it's about sharing the load and hearing from each other to help make the decision about what's our next steps.
And often there's resistance to change, even in the leadership team. You've got, various different perspectives and different types of philosophies around things, and different confidence around change. You can get some pushback, so the leader, the CEO could have, have an executive management team that's really fearful of any change and wants to keep things going as they are. I mean, how do they navigate and build this confidence around being adaptable and nimble and innovative?
I think it's, I'm sounding a bit like I'm a bit of a crack record here, Lyn, but I think it's about slowing down. And I think it's about not rushing the decision as to what we are going to do in that implementation phase. It's getting really clear on why and what's the sense of urgency. And also thinking about our people, but also the people we serve. And who are the people that are benefiting from our service, whatever it is that we do. So I think being nimble and being able to move comes with also just slowing down and not rushing a decision. And I'm not saying you've got to take months and months and months, but maybe take a few weeks, maybe take whatever it takes to feel confident in your decision process that this is what is actually needed and this is the why. Because once, as a senior leader, once you're clear, it will give you the drive and the motivation to keep going once the change does start and the road gets rough. It gives you that, because if you're not clear yourself, you'll start to go, I don't know, I'm not sure, and you could lose your confidence, let alone what it will do to engage others in the organisation, your other senior leaders as being part of that decision, but also your middle leaders. Because if they can be part of the decision making and thinking about it, they will actually get on board. And one of my favourite things to talk about is to choose the change. And people say, you can't get people to choose the change. People don't like change. I don't believe that. I believe if people can actually see the need, understand the challenge that we've got to fix, or the opportunities that we're missing, they will say, okay, maybe it's going to impact me a bit personally, but I can see for the organisation and the people that we serve, this is a good decision to move. So it's about getting good with your thinking and good with your questioning and your curiosity as leaders in organisations.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head with that statement of being clear about the why. Mm-hmm. And that requires a lot of data, a lot of investigation, conversations, bringing all that to the table to really look at, okay, we've got this broad idea about something needs to shift, but as we learn more understanding the why, then even that case for change can be tweaked, and the buy-in is starting through that process because people are starting to be part of the co-design of that change, I guess. So once that case is clear and we are clear, we know the why, what's the most effective first step to take, something that leaders can immediately start to do to build the momentum that starts to build this culture that embraces continuous adaptation?
Well, the first thing to do, I believe, is once you're aligned, if you're not aligned as a senior leadership team, don't go anywhere. Don't announce anything. Don't start sharing it with the whole organisation. Don't start sending emails. Spend the time getting aligned. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have diverse thinking. It's about how can we actually gain that alignment. And once the alignment occurs, this is good for the organisation. And as I said before, keeping in mind the people that you're serving is really important. How is it going to benefit the people that we serve with whatever it is our organisation does? It's going then to your middle leaders. Your middle leaders are your conduit to make this happen. And I see far too often they're skipped and they hear about it at a general town hall or a staff meeting, and they're going, what? Like, be nice if someone actually alluded this to us, because they're the ones who have got to do the grunt work. So even before it's announced to the whole organisation and to your customers or clients, I would actually go to your middle leaders and engage with them and give them time to understand it and give them time to contribute, co-create. And, you know, it's not about them stopping the change. We've made a strategic decision that this actually has to occur, but we need to listen to them, because they are the ones who will be doing the work to help engage the rest of the employees in the organisation. So we need them on board, and we need them to choose this. If they're resisting and if they're talking this change down, we want them talking it up. That's where you'll have trouble. So again, it's slowing down and spending some time with the middle leaders to help them and be fair to them and to share with them what their role will be in this change, but also answering their questions. Let them contribute about how we might do some of this. So that's where I'd go. Alignment first of senior team, and then to middle leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I've seen that so often where it's sort of been a real issue where the middle level managers haven't been brought in and given the respect to being part of identifying even, you know, the case for change and being a part of it. And I know it is hard if it's confidential and if it is a game changer. But, you know, these are managers that you're entrusting your teams with and your clients with, so you can entrust them and bring them into that confidential loop of discovery and ownership. Leaders who are listening today, we've had so many people interested in this podcast, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people listening on catch up as well. But for those who are considering getting external support, you know, I think of this as, you know, I had the opportunity for being a rally car driver, navigator, you know, someone driving the rally car and me learning to be a navigator. And I often think about you in that kind of role. You know, there's these teams that are in the driver's seat, and to have someone sitting beside you helping you navigate, map out the route, work out the best ways of doing things. When is the best time to bring in a change specialist like you, and how can these leaders and these leadership teams make the most of you? Because, you know, a lot of people don't know how to use a change specialist.
Yeah, I first of all, I'd like to go on a car rally like that. That sounds like fun to learn to be a navigator. And I guess that's what I do refer to myself in answering your question as a guide, or I help people navigate. I don't do the change for people. I actually stand beside them, not behind them or in front of them. I stand beside them and say, well, have you thought about this? This is the next step we need to take. Because not only am I a coach, I do one-on-one coaching with senior leaders, but I'm also a facilitator, as you mentioned, and I'm a qualified change manager. So I have those strings to my bow. So I actually, with that combination, I can, with the facilitation, create that safe environment for people to start talking as teams. But I think the best time to get someone in like me is early in the conception stage. You know, it's a bit like we're thinking about having a change. What should we let? Well, I can come in and actually start to help you think about that case for change, all the stuff that we've talked about. So before you start taking any action, even before it's time to plan, it's like, let's think it through. Let's think it through. So with my facilitation skills, I can actually provoke, I can challenge, I can create a safe environment for people to do some really good thinking together and pull stuff out of them so they can go, hey, we hadn't thought of that. So I think that's the key, is early when you're thinking about it, or you're thinking, oh, I think this might have to happen. That's when because I can best help, really, is at that time.
And it's not an easy journey. I mean, so many leaders and their teams that embrace change and journey forward through these sort of transformations in their organisations. It's sort of like you don't know what you don't know, which is probably a good thing. But, halfway through, or even not even then, the realisation that this is massive can hit everybody. And sort of it does require certain mindset shift, I think. So what's a powerful mindset shift that you believe every leader should embrace to lead and sustain that meaningful change as they embark upon that?
Well, there's a couple of things, Lyn. I think firstly, as the leader, you need to be 100% committed and on board and convinced yourself that this needs to happen. And that then drives your ability to contribute and lead the change. So I think it's important that you don't just pass the ball to the rest of the organisation and feel that they need to do the changing. It's about how you as the leader can sponsor that change. And when I say sponsor, that sounds a bit technical, but it doesn't just mean in budget. It means in leadership. It means being there and being present to help sail the ship. I've just been sailing on my holiday, and I know that you can't. What the skipper does on a boat is to chart the course and provide direction, and the crew helps to get that boat sailing. But without the direction and without the confidence that the skipper gives you, it's hard to do it. And some of that instruction when the wind picks up and you don't know what's going on and you get that direction. So I think the mindset of leaders is to be there with their people. And, I often talk about you can't have presence with if you're not present, you have to be present through this change journey and roll your sleeves up at times and help sail the boat, help the crew, and don't just throw it at them and say, make this happen. But early on, it's that helping them believe in it. And I talk about the secret sauce of change, and that secret sauce, it's the strategy of helping people choose it. Once you've got people going, yeah, I can see we need to do this. It's some of those things like co-creation, constant communication, two-way, listening and hearing. It's about commitment. It's about clarity early on of this case for change. So it's really about, as a leader, it's not just telling. Pull back on the telling and start doing more of sharing and listening. And it's about thinking about it as the skipper of the ship. It's the compass. We've got to get to there, but things will change. But how do we help the crew or help the team to make this change happen? So I think the mindset is really about you are there to lead, and because people need a leader. We don't just wander around, and because if you don't have a leader, people will get confused. People will go round in circles. People will go off and do their own thing or not do it at all. There needs to be that leadership, definitely, to make a change happen in an organisation.
That's profound, and it's so often not the case. You cannot outsource this entirely. Mm-hmm. You can have people come in and walk with you and beside you and with you and guiding you, but as a leader, it takes that commitment and that courage to continue and be with it. And as you say, to listen, to encourage others to participate and put their ideas forward, and to not feel you have to have all the answers yourself, and it is that takes a real shift. It really does take a shift to be confident to show that you don't know all the answers and that that's okay.
Oh, and I think when there's skin in the game, when you can see your leader is there and even a little bit vulnerable at times, saying, I'm not sure which way we need to go here, people will sometimes, go, well, I've got an idea. And if you're open to that as a leader, people will see it and they can relate to that. Whereas if you're not present or you're not available or you're not around, they lose faith in you as a leader, but they lose faith in the change itself. That's the thing that we've got to focus on. So I'm all for some of that vulnerability, authenticity, saying, I'm not sure which way we go. But, that's why we have teams, because teams can actually help co-create. Well, what about this? If you invite it in as a leader, and that's why that not rushing things. It's taking times to get together with people and hear stuff. And I think that's the challenge for people. We've just got to get this thing moving. Yeah, but if people aren't clear and they're confused, or I'm confused as a leader, or I'm not sure. I was coaching someone the other day, and they were having a challenge with the fact that they felt that they needed to have all the answers. And I actually had to point out to them by asking the question, do you feel you need to have the answers for this? And they said, yes. And I said, and how is that working for you? And they said, not well, because I don't have the answer. And I said, what do you think your options are? And they said, and they paused, and I said, I guess I could ask my team. I said, bingo, bingo, bingo. And I think there's this thing about leadership. There's such a connection between leadership and leading change that this old style thinking that as a leader, you have to have all the answers. You have to have all the answers. My skipper on my boat recently didn't, he would chart the course, but he would ask, do you understand and do you have any ideas? He welcomed thought, and that engaged me and gave me confidence to think, yeah, I can contribute to this too. So yeah, I think it's leaders who think that they have to have all the answers. I think you're setting yourself up for a bit of hurt there, and it will also hurt your team, because sometimes you can't come up with the answer. You don't have it.
Well, that's right. So many brains can make so much better pie. You know what, the interesting thing that I was thinking about then with your skipper analogy is this, you know, this concept of the leader during change and during anything where there's sort of a lot of unknowns and you're navigating things. One of the most important thing is just to ensure the safety of everybody. And if you think that about the, you know, applying that in an organisation around safety, really you're just that the safer everyone is, that is by being a part of the conversation and knowing the information and being together so that they've all eyes, ears open. You know, I think we were chatting earlier on about, you know, the improvements that your skipper made this year compared to last year, just bringing in more safety measures so that you could operate really well as a team. And it just struck me as we were chatting today now. It's all about providing, you know, the processes and the opportunities and the guides with you so that everyone's safe in this process.
Safety is the key. And again, in a sailing analogy, it's part of the skipper's job to keep everyone safe. And the same goes with change. You know, if people are feeling unsafe, they will buy out, or they will leave, or they'll get hurt in the process. So change is such a people game. I think sometimes we get caught up in whatever the change is, whether it's a new system or it's technology or it's a restructure or it's a financial change, whatever it is. But people are the ones who will do this change, and they're the ones who will get hurt through this process. So that's also part of our role as leaders, is to create that safe environment for people to be able to express themselves, to talk and share where they feel comfortable, because sometimes people may not. But definitely it's about, and if we can keep the communication channels open, and that means regular conversations, but two-way. It's not just talking at, the leader is not just talking at and giving instruction, it's listening and asking, you know, do you have any questions? Is there anything you're unsure about? Those sorts of questions. Yes, that takes time, but that will actually also, that's time well invested, I believe. Lyn? Yeah.
It's tough. I think it's tough for, you know, people that are in those CEO roles, in the managing director, the general manager roles, because they are a certain type of personality and brain set in order to be able to undertake those certain roles. And quite often the next level of management, their management team are technical specialists in their areas. They aren't necessarily wired up like the leader. So the challenge for the CEO, or the one that's driving the change and trying to create an organisation that's adaptive and nimble, the challenge, I think, is for them to understand the different brains and the different types of integration and input that the different groups from their different areas can be bringing forward, that it will be different, and it can be challenging for the leader to slow down and listen and allow, so that it isn't just their idea to be forcing. As you say, it's not about pushing this in. That command control style of leadership is going to bring about a lot of issues for you.
Yeah, well, you know, if you try to force anything, force isn't a useful strategy in change, because it will break, or it's something, it won't fit, or it won't work. And command and control, just because I have seen leaders over the years, because they are the leader, they believe that people will follow them. Not necessarily. They need to believe in what they're doing. So it's about making sure that we engage people to think and contribute. And that's how I go back to my secret sauce of choosing it. And take that mindset with you into your change. I'd love if there's one thing that people can remember from today's conversation, Lyn, is what can you do to help your people choose this, to get on board with it, to decide, I will get on the bus with this. And for some people that might take some time, but for others, it's our behaviour and what we're doing as leaders that can either help or hinder that. And the way we lead and share, but also invite and contribution will definitely help go a long way. A better way than forcing the change on someone is helping them choose it. Yeah.
Well, Tracy Cooper, change specialist, it's always enlightening to have you on the show. I could chat about this particular topic for hours on end with you and learn something every time. For those of our listeners that are tuning in, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks, Tracy, for sharing your wisdom.
That's all right, Lyn. It's my pleasure. I love talking about change, if you can't tell, and I also love helping people. That's my thing. And I in finishing, I'd like to say I know leadership is not easy, and leading change is hard. And I've done it in businesses that I've run, and it can be a very lonely place. And having someone to support them, like myself or others, can help that. But it's also utilize your people around you and just take the pressure off yourself to have all the answers. That's my last message for today.
Thanks, Tracy. For those of you who are keen on having a chat to Tracy, you can find her on the Business Women Australia directory on LinkedIn, and you'll see in the show notes some more background of Tracy. So please do reach out to her, have a chat. You will learn something, and you will find that change doesn't need to be frightening. It's actually really important to embrace the innovation that we need in our organisations today, and it can be a lot of fun. Anything that Tracy does is always a lot of fun. Can I say that I want to do a podcast on the case for change can be fun? And it's so true. Yeah. We've been very serious today, but I think
we have. Yeah.
We have, and it's an important subject. And I just think the advice here to slow down, bring your people to the table, have conversations, look at the why, and get that case for change clear. And then don't forget your middle level managers. Don't just roll it out without them getting involved. There's some big takeaways today. As always, thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Lyn. Loved it. Thank you.
Well, for those of you who have been listening and watching Business Women Australia over the last 10 years, we're celebrating coming up to 10 years since we started as a national community of leaders. Now's a really good time to join. We've got an incredible end-of-year program around the nation and online, and our 2026 program is looking phenomenal already. We bring together business owners and entrepreneurs, executives, professionals, women on boards, emerging leaders. If that sounds like you and you're a woman who's desiring growth and high-level connections, and you want to be a part of a community that amplifies the voices, the knowledge, the talent of women, we would love you to join. Our areas of focus are on leadership, business improvement, personal growth, professional growth, connections, and of course friendship. I love my friends that I've made all around Australia, these incredible women who've taught me so much, and I invite you to consider joining Business Women Australia if you haven't already done so. You can head to our website and you can join up through the join button at the top of the website page. We'd love to see more of you, and thanks for listening.
You have been listening to the Business Women Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Business Women Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.